The Madman! Welcome to the star ratings for Paladin, Priest, and Rogue. Looking at Paladin, the thing that stands out most is the secret package. Mysterious Blade, Commander Orisa, Never Surrender, Desperate Measures. And of course we can't forget the neutral Totem Golem, the Sunreaver Spy. Boy does this deck run out of steam fast. There is no big late game buff from Tarim. There's no draw 6 cards with Divine Favor. So I tried to build it even faster, even including cards such as Wolf Rider. And maybe that's the way to go, to build it ruthlessly aggressive, Wolf Rider, Blessing of Might. Maybe the way to go is to package these things into a more mid-range Paladin deck. But anyways, I am surprisingly going to say that the Secret Paladin deck is going to be around tier 3. So across the board, I'm rating all of these cards 3 stars. These are efficient cards, but in order to make use of these efficient cards, you have to run some pretty bad cards. Desperate Measures being one of those that I'm not entirely sure will make it into this deck. Is it worth running so many bad cards just in order for you to run a Unnerved Fire War Axe and a 2-mana 3/4? And it's like, you know, I've actually had better, more imbalanced type stuff to run before. There's another package in here, the Dragon package. Bronze Herald, Dragon Speaker, and Nazari. Bronze Herald I give 1 star, Dragon Speaker I give 1 star. Nazari I give 2 stars. I think that the Dragon Paladin thing is not quite worth it. Whether it be Control Dragon Paladin or Aggro Dragon Paladin, possibly with the secret package, it just seems too slow. So the reason why Nazari is actually 2 stars is because I feel like it could see play in a currently existing Paladin deck, OTK, Shirvala, Holy Wrath deck. Nazari is at its best in some sort of combo or control deck, and OTK Shirvala certainly is one of those. You do kind of want your opponent to be below 25, but if they're at 30, that's not a huge deal. You can kill them from there. And then we've just got the other stuff. Lightforged Blessing, 1 star. Yes, if you play it with Wild Pyromancer, you could gain a lot of health and trigger the Wild Pyromancer twice potentially. But I'm not really seeing that as that useful. Call to Adventure, 1 star. You're clearly wanting to combo it with something small and specific, possibly Immortal Prelate, for example, but that's just too slow. And then Duel, 1 star. You can potentially get rid of your opponent's combo minion, perhaps. You can perhaps cheat out your Tyrion, but seems really inconsistent to build a deck focused around the idea of duel. Now on to Priest. Priest stuff is mainly in vaguely 3 buckets of stuff. First, I'm going to call the Silence/Midrange package. Evil Conscriptor, Henchclan Shadequill, Unsleeping Soul, Convincing Infiltrator. This particular archetype has a lot of neutral support as well. I think this deck's gonna be pretty strong. It may or may not actually run Evil Conscriptor or Convincing Infiltrator, but Unsleeping Soul is a very big enabler for the whole deck. Go 3 mana 5/6 into 4 mana Silence that 5/6, which allows you to attack with it, and then summon another 5/6, which is incredible tempo in the early game. Or take your consolation prize of Ancient Watcher instead of Arcane Watcher. And Henchclan Shadequill doesn't have to be silenced. It's just a decent mid-range minion with a pretty minor drawback, honestly. So for that main silence package, Unsleeping Soul, 4 stars, Henchclan Shadequill, 4 stars. I think Silence Priest will be a solid tier 2 deck. Convincing Infiltrator, you have the Deadly Shot effect on a minion with Taunt. That's really efficient. 4 stars. The Evil Conscriptor, I think, will also go into the Silence Priest deck. It's meant to be put into some sort of Zoo-type Priest deck, which I think the Silence Priest deck is, but this one I'm not so sure on. 3 stars. Then we've got the Resurrection cards. Mass Resurrection and Katarina Muerte. These are a bit of a departure from the older Resurrection cards in that they cost a lot of mana. Katarina Muerte is pretty awesome value. Might even make it into the Silence Priest type deck. My only problem with Katarina Muerte is it's really not certain what deck it goes in, because when I say it might make it into the Silence Priest deck, it's like, you've got quite a number of things that you'd be a little bit sad to summon. Maybe run out of silences by then. 3 stars. Mass Resurrection, 2 stars. Boy, is that just generally too slow. Katarina Muerte might just be better because you're getting a guaranteed 6/8. and then you're getting one more thing. And then we've got general control cards. Forbidden Words is a really efficient, flexible answer. There are several big mana cost cards that have 4 attack, and now you as a priest can deal with that for just 4 mana. 4 stars, I actually feel like that card could make it into the Silence Priest deck as well as just control decks in general. Lazul's Scheme, 1 star. I always hesitate before I give a 0 mana spell a 1-star rating, but Control Priest doesn't look like it'll be in that good a spot, and Lazul's Scheme, Cabal Shadow Priest, is not necessarily that strong because it'll stay at the reduced attack, and then the opponent can kill it fairly easily. And then we have Madame Lazul, a great control type card. Unlike Curious Glimmerroot just gave you a random card from their deck, Madame Lazul gives you a discover option of the best card out of the 3 cards from their hand. I feel like the massive boost in quality as well as the slight hand information offered by Lazul will be worth it. Might see this in the Silence Priest deck. Would probably see this in Control Priest as well. I don't think Control Priest will be that high. So Madame Lazul, I'll give 3 stars. And then finally, we have the odd man out shadowy figure, kind of like the old Mirage color, which didn't really see much play. Similarly, I don't think anything has changed here. Shadowy figure will probably not see any play. Yeah, 1 star. Rogue gets a huge burgle bundle. Hench Clan Burglar, Vendetta, Underbelly Fence, and I'm gonna include Tack Naz Whisker in this bundle also, because I see Tack mostly being used with academic espionage. I will just go ahead and say I don't think that Pilfer is a good enough card to run just to activate your Underbelly Fence. Just run your Hench Clan Burglar and your Blink Fox and be happy enough with that. While there may not end up being that many cards that will burgle cards from your opponent, given that Hench Clan Burglar is a pirate, you could raiding party your Hench Clan Burglar. So that's actually going to be pretty consistent in getting your spell from another class. So I think all of these abilities are outstandingly powerful. And even though the Underbelly Fence is not something that I would expect to play on 2, even if Underbelly Fence is played on turn 5, I think that's pretty good. Vendetta, 5 stars. Underbelly Fence, 5 stars. Hench Clan Burglar, 5 stars. So Tack Naz Whisker is only good with pretty much exactly academic espionage getting prepped, and then you can fill up your hand full of the 1 mana cards that you academic espionage into your deck. You won't even overdraw because you can still play them. That's pretty sweet, but it requires a 3-card combo. That's questionable, but the payoff is really big. With the Tess Greymane, you kind of want to have the academic espionage anyways. I think it's going to be a thing though. I'm less certain about it than the slam dunks of the other cards. So Tack, 4 stars. The other card you could use with Tack Naz Whisker is Togwaggle's Scheme. Togwaggle's Scheme, one of your cards that you play alongside Tack or something that's on the board, and then you just get a bunch of that card into your hand. One of those cards might be Pogo Hopper, but that sounds ridiculous. Ridiculously slow. Togwaggle Scheme, 2 stars. We've also got the Heist Baron Togwaggle package, which is Heist Baron Togwaggle and Evil Miscreant. Will Heist Baron Togwaggle be good enough that you'll also want to run the 1 neutral card that generates lackeys, Evil Cable Rat, alongside your Evil Miscreant? Evil Miscreant is a pretty good deal by its own right. 3 mana to draw 2 cards if you consider the Lackey to be about a card. So the Evil Miscreant is not really much of a enabler as much as it is a decent card by its own right. 3 stars. That feeds into Heist Baron Togwaggle, 3 stars. 6 mana 5/5, choose a fantastic treasure is fantastic. Those treasures are really good. It's just a question of, can you be consistent enough to run a value rogue type deck? Also an interesting question is, do you fit the Evil Miscreant and the Heist Baron Togwaggle into your Burgle deck anyways, for the ultimate in value? I do want to once again bring up the idea of Heist Baron Togwaggle into choosing the draw 3 cards, they cost 0, and then you just Togwaggle Scheme Heist Baron Togwaggle, prep out the draw 3, and then you get Togwaggle, Togwaggle, Togwaggle. How could you lose with that much value? By not having the taunt and the healing and the AoE of other classes? That would be how. And then we've got the other utility cards. Daring Escape, 1 star. I can think of very little reason to run Daring Escape over a Shadow Step. I guess one of the things you could do is Daring Escape alongside Togwaggle and the Lackey, so you get the Lackey back in your hand as well. In fact, that's probably what the art is trying to depict. Still though, a card in your hand waiting for exactly after you've played Togwaggle seems a bit narrow. Unidentified Contract is a really efficient kill. And yet at the same time though, I just don't see a control rogue happening. Even though there's no clear deck for Unidentified Contract to go in, I just feel like it is better than Walk the Plank, and if some sort of value rogue deck should come about, there's a decent chance it will run Unidentified Contract, so I'll give it 2 stars. And finally, Waggle Pick. There are few weapons that have a drawback when the death rattle happens. And yes, the drawback is mainly meant as a benefit, but this was in the case of Bloodrazor as well. Sometimes it was a downside, where your opponent would ooze your Bloodrazor and your Bloodrazor would kill your own stuff. A 4-2 weapon for 4 is pretty solid, but it's very difficult to set up the Waggle Pick result. Now I am thinking of these aggressive rogue decks which run Leroy Jenkins, and then you Waggle Pick on 4, you swing again after playing Leroy and hitting them with Leroy, and then you get your Leroy back in your hand. That's like the dream for Waggle Pick. It is really hard though to get your board set up to a position where it's like, oh, everything that I have on my board, I'm okay to Shadow Step back in my hand. And therein lies the problem with Waggle Pick. So Waggle Pick, 2 star. If it was just between Waggle Pick and Necroom Blade, I would be more willing to say that Waggle Pick is fairly good. But there's a new contender, Spectral Cutlass. With all these Burgle cards, I think Spectral Cutlass can get pretty big and give Rogue the amount of health it might need to sustain itself. So your raiding party can just get the Henge Clan Burglar and Spectral Cutlass, and that's pretty sweet.